So first of all, are there any general questions before we get started?
What is the value of pi?
We missed our Pi Day celebration. We didn't have any pie this year. Didn't fall on a Tuesday. So yeah, we're less prepared this year than we would
We
be.
don't know the answer. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the state of HDF5 documentation. And we'll have Neelam start off.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. I'm here to just quickly give a brief overview of where we're at, not in terms of documentation, but as you know, where we started this from. We're in a less than ideal situation than we were several years ago, with where we had 2 full-time employees working on documentation. Currently, we have a real small group of HDF Group engineers. We meet bi-weekly, mostly to address any urgent issues that come up. We also have a backlog that we're working our way down, but it really is dependent on funding and time. Currently, we do not have any funding that that helps us get through that backlog. As far as our goal of that group is, when we got initially set up, there were a lot of complaints from our users about the searchability, about the URLs broken. So we felt that we really needed to take a few steps back and enhance, or basically improve, our documentation infrastructure. So that was one of our primary goal. And if there is a call the doctor session that Gerd had done, I believe it was in June of last year, and he walks us through his journey, the HDF group's journey with documenting HDF5, and it's pretty well captured in that video. But he mentioned in that we were going to basically provide a one-stop shop for all things documentation related. So we've got that set up, at least the front of it. We still have a lot of work to do in the background, and Lori will walk us through some of that. Our secondary goal is to also improve content quality as we go through these, with these meetings. We're hoping to basically rebuild in Doxygen. There's still a lot of things that were lost in translation, and Scott will talk about our future plans there. But with that, I guess I can let Lori, are you next? You'll talk about what all we've got with our support site.
Sure. So I can talk quickly about some of the accomplishments this team has made. One of the things we did was that we centralized content at support.hdfgroup.org. The people on this call will remember that was the original URL for documentation for a very long time. And around 2018, we started using this other subdomain of Portal and hosted that content on an on-prem Confluence site, and then kept support out there as an archive site. And we found many users were still using that archive site, even though it had a message on there, this is not being updated, please try to move on with your lives. So we had some issues with that. Also, support is just like, that's the no-brainer domain name. So that on-prem Confluence machine, or that installation, had crashed, and we'd already started moving to Doxygen and started this process. But that's kind of the reason that you may from time to time discover content missing on the current support site. Let us know, and we'll talk through some of the ways you can let us know in a little bit. Another recent accomplishment was implementing a Google programmable search engine. This works such that if Google can find it, the PSC will pick it up. This is currently a navigation link on the support site. One of the to-do items that we still have to do is add the little search box to, the corner of the Doxygen content, as you might expect. As I said, it's currently a link, a menu item. And we're kind of struggling with that. So if there's anyone that's successfully done this, please reach out and maybe you can help us with that. And then some other things that we've accomplished was reorganizing and standardizing content locations, including the RFCs, making the existing Doxygen content better and more accessible. And then other user interface issues, like making the examples make more sense, be presented in a space-saving way. So those are some things that we've accomplished so far. Here are a few screenshots just so you get an idea of what the Doxygen build looks like. This is the reference manual. This is the getting started guide. This is what it looks like a few clicks in on the support site. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about the Doxygen generated content. If you see problems on any of these pages, any of the Doxygen pages, we are working on an issue collector for these that will just, you can fill out, there'll be something to click on in the corner and then you fill out a form and it'll make an issue for us. But until then, you can make an issue in the HDF5 repo. Bonus points, fix it yourself if you feel inclined or if you feel like you know what you're doing. You can also report it to the help desk at either the email or the URL, but what we'll turn around and do is make an issue. So best just to make an issue if you can. Okay, Alan, do you want to talk about Doxygen?
Yes. So Doxygen, wonderful. It's all the documentation is in the source code. Well, that sounds wonderful. Moving the user guide over was quite the experience because I had access to a PDF or two FrameMaker files. And I don't know if you ever looked at FrameMaker files, but they're pretty disjointed. The other, once that got in, I then started moving all other documentation that is referenced from the user guide into Doxygen. Also, some files that were referenced by technical notes or RFCs, specifications, and those were either in Microsoft Docs, PDFs, or MD files. And doing MD files are a breeze with Doxygen. They're almost one-to-one. It's so easy to bring those over. If they're PDFs, you get all the text, but sometimes you had to go hunt and search and do a lot more to try to bring in any kind of graphics or anything like that. Docs, and then of course Microsoft Docs getting, at least I had access to everything that it had access to. So it was just time consuming. The worst type of files is HTML. Those, I could grab the text, but I had to reformat basically the whole idea of what it was trying to do. So that's, but now that they're in there, it's easy, it's nice. You can put links into reference pages. You can put links into other pages, other sections. You can reference the user guide directly. And that's why we went to Doxygen, is for those cross links. Other than that, there is one other thing we did. We customized it a little bit by using the Doxygen Awesome extension, which gives us a little bit more consistency of visual presentations and possibly some other items, but we'll find that out in the future. That's about it for Doxygen. Going forward, we're hoping to, one of the things that we're looking into is a way to present various languages in Doxygen. So if you have an example code using C and you want to show the same thing in Fortran, right now we have to have separate locations for those two. But I've seen on the web, I don't know how they've done it yet. I've only seen it in passing, but you could have tabs and have different, presentation of code. The other thing is, one thing we're doing is with workflows, we're going to start publishing, and I say publishing in that we will if we do a daily build of develop because of some changes, we also create the Doxygen documentation at the same time. Right now, they just end up as artifacts on the releases page, but we're going to publish that changed documentation to the support site, so that if you go to the support site and you click on documentation, you will have the latest documentation available. We're not getting rid of the documentation that lives under releases. Those will still be available, but this is the up-to-date documentation. So as we fix things, as people find issues, we'll be able to show that to people easily.
Okay, so as Alan mentioned, so going forward, we plan to view our documentation kind of a living documentation approach. So we want to treat it as basically a dynamic and just continuously evolving. So we recognize that the importance of having up-to-date documentation is incredibly critical for our users. This is how they get to know the library, how they understand the library and how to use it. So having up-to-date documentation is important to us, and we don't want to necessarily tie that documentation to a release cycle. So what we've decided is to keep this document updated and not necessarily tie it to a release cycle. We can tag it, of course, when there is a release, but we plan to have one master document going forward, instead of kind of different versions for different releases. And we've tried to make note in our documentation which features, for example, were introduced in 1.8, 1.12, because that's also important for our users to know. And if you only have one document, you have to know that type of information, which feature was introduced when and in what release. So we've gone into the past documentations and updated all the APIs that we know of and tagged them to when those features were released, and we continue doing that going forward. So again, as Lori mentioned, we plan to have a button or something that will send you, if you discover something wrong or you want some improvement in the support site, then we plan to provide an easy way to get to the GitHub issues to report that instead of having to go there manually. I think that will help a lot with feedback for our documentation. And again, as Alan mentioned, we're starting to put a lot of these links into the Doxygen documents themselves, and those need to be checked every so often to make sure they point to something valid. So we are working on improving our link checking to make sure that those links aren't just pointing to dead ends. When we are aware that we've missed some documents that in the past have been pretty important for users and they just kind of got dropped by the wayside or just lost in translation. So we'd like feedback on, hey, which document did we miss out, and including those and rebuilding those into our newer format. We're also aware that the user's guide is quite out of date and that hasn't been updated. So we really hope to make an effort to improve our user's guide. And then we're always continuously trying to update our document materials in general. So, I mean, that's still going forward. But again, there's not a lot of people pounding at the door to help us do documentation. So it's always a challenge to get a lot of this work done. And I guess in terms of URLs, remember, again, we have the support site, which that refer to that's generated from the Doxygen content itself. That has our documentations or downloads and just other convenient links to the forum and help desk. And then we also have, as we mentioned, and this is kind of in progress, you can always view the latest version that's not tied to a release. It's always off develop. And then we're working on, as I said, pointing it to this living document instead of a released version. So this is all kind of in progress, but that's the direction we're going with the documentation, and that should be reflected in the next few weeks. So until we get the button, like I mentioned before, you have to go to the issues. If you see documentation issues, you have to go, you have, of course, have a GitHub account to submit an issue. But the alternative then is just to contact the help desk, either through the email or on our website there. And again, if there's a discussion that you want to maybe dive deep into in our documentation, there's always our forum, and we usually monitor that so we can we can note issues from that as well. But if you do submit to, for example, the helps, we will make a issue collector anyway. So if you want to take out the middleman, you can just create the issues yourselves. Okay. And we're always looking for, a way to help fund this documentation. If you're aware of anywhere that, proposals or funding agencies that are looking into helping, I guess, support such a sustainable thing as documentation, we're always on the lookout. And yeah, so go ahead, Lori. Do you want to mention our user group meeting?
Sure, I've got, the link is on here on this slide. The HDF5 user group meeting is happening in Hamburg, Germany this year, May 26th through 28th. We just extended the deadline to submit presentation proposals, so you have about another week to get those in, whether 20 minutes, 5 minutes, or a poster. And register, you can attend remotely or in person, so might as well sign up. It'll be a great event. And are there any documentation questions or about our processes? Okay, Elena?
First of all, I want to thank you guys. Definitely a lot of work was done. A lot of empty links disappeared. I only found the ones that when you go to archive and go to next level of archiving, then some documentation is missing, but it's not critical. One thing is, do you want me to comment on documentation, HDF5 documentation, or send it as a bug report? I can quickly comment on if we show a current documentation for HDF5, a few things.
Okay, I mean, this is recorded, so yeah, we can go back and get those, and you can also submit issues too.
I can do both, and it will be really quick.
Okay.
So if you go to documentation page, and you may probably display it instead of slides. So when you go to support page and then go to documentation on the right, you get two bars on the left and a horizontal one. And it is duplicated, meaning that when you, for example, go to reference manual, the place for functions is little half of what it could be. It's really very, very annoying.
Yep. So the fact that there's two of those navigation bars, that'll get fixed when we make the switch to latest. That's one of the things that will change.
That will be another annoying thing is that there is no way for me from this page to go back to a support page. I have to do errors. For example, I cannot click on HDF icon and go back to support page.
Okay. Yep.
Now, I'm just wondering, RFC, which is a great source, I just love it. I go there all the time. It has not been updated for quite some time. The last is from 2022, and there were nice RFCs that maybe still not implemented, but it would be nice to have, so you do not need to search through email or forum.
Yeah, we are working on organizing. We've kind of done it behind the scenes to organize the RFCs. And then the next step that we haven't done yet is making the page that will link to where they're at.
Right, this table will be from all those RFCs are stored in H5 doc repo. So we plan to generate this page here that you're seeing from that repo, get that table. So that table will be stored where the RFCs are stored. So
yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice. So another comment about this page, about button, because I was trying to find out, I have no clue about Doxygen, I'm trying to contribute new functions and how to do it. There's no documentation. It's hidden a little bit under about button, but about is misleading about what? And it's really about creating Doxygen documentation, right? It would be nice to have some guidance how to create documentation for new functions and for specifications. For example, file format. I will need to contribute to file format. I am not sure how I'll do it. I will figure it out, but it will be very helpful and I believe will stimulate contributions. Also, it would be nice to have sandbox where new functions that are in development and not finalized can be published. Right now, we have it with Violin on Gamma, and it's hard to find, and no one else can see it if you do not know. So sandbox for things that are in works, not finished, but at least easy can be linked to RFC, and just to see signatures will be very helpful. So, in last comment about user guide, it's more historical. A frame maker was great because HDF4 documentation, it is published quality documentation. So HDF5 was on that path when decision was made to go to HTML or whatever. So now, since we do not have, I don't know, it's nice to have something that can be printed nicely. But that's of course too much to ask, but FrameMaker was great and HDF4 is still, that documentation quality was excellent. So, but we are not at the stage where we can print, documentation. So thank you.
Elena, you plan on submitting those issues, or would you like us to create those issues?
I can submit those issues to GitHub. Yes, I will write down. I wrote down in my notebook.
I could tell you were going down a list. So yeah, if you would add those, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple responses for you. One, we're not using the full we're not using the full Doxygen experience, if you want. We're limiting it just to these HTML pages, but there are Doxygen does have other add-ons and other things that you can process to do what you want, to get a printable document and so on. So yes, I'm aware of that. Again, it comes down to somebody just implementing it and stuff.
My biggest complaint about, and Quincy probably will join me in this complaint, with specification file format, the tables are not labeled. You have to search them by name. You cannot cross-reference them easily. And if new version,
yes,
can do something about, I will be more than happy because I'm working in a file format document to help somehow.
Yeah, and I realized that when I was doing it, but they were so extensive and they were all HTML and they were not consistent between documents. So it was very hard to initially do what you're talking about. And it's a valid that should be noted, and there should be an issue that says to improve on, items to improve on those. Because when I did it, it was such trying to go from HTML to Doxygen or anything from HTML is so hard. It really is, and that is more a failure of inconsistency of the HTML format. I mean, it was even the same sections in the different formats versions were completely different. You couldn't even do a side-by-side compare because they were so different.
You know, I'm dreading to bringing changes for sparse into this Doxygen. I don't know how much time, because HTML was easy, and this one involves more steps. So I really would ask you for guidance, but later when we finalize
Yeah.
it.
I know one of the first things you said was basically a back button. Yes, those are missing in a lot of places. I have added them to some places, but not to everywhere. Again, it was some of the stuff was done before we came up with a consistent way of presenting pages, and so we just have to go back and do them again. Issues, please.
Absolutely, I have more, so I will submit.
I just wanted to show what Alan was talking about with the tabs. So we're starting to use it with the Fortran and then the obsolete, because we haven't updated this is a user's guide. We haven't updated it with the Fortran 2003 at all. So I added that recently, and then you can switch between the Fortran, this is the old way of doing it, and then using it with Fortran 2003. So this is a nice feature.
Very nice.
Although the problem, I reported an issue with it later on. There is an issue with it. So, for example, this one, for some reason, it fills the empty space with the code. So this is Fortran. It goes all the way down, right? But when you do Fortran 2003, it doesn't move the text up. It pads it until so. I've been in discussions with the Doxygen Awesome to maybe try to fix that, but yeah. But other than that, I like the tab feature a lot, and that can be used also with for example, the file formats, right? You could tab between 1, 2, and 3 type thing, but it's a nice way to organize things. Any other? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, any other questions? I was gonna say the same thing. Okay, all right. Well, thank you, everyone. And we'll be back next week.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Great work.